GM Farcaster. Oh wait, that's a different show. But GM everyone, and welcome to the first episode of The Hub, a developer-focused podcast on the GM Farcaster Network. I'm your host, Dillstack.eth. I'm here with Adrienne and today's guest host, Samuel Huber, a legendary builder, developer advocate, all of the such on Farcaster. And we are here to go over top developer news from this past week. Welcome everyone, GM.
GM Dylan, GM Sam.
Python is untyped. We can't speak Python. I don't know how to infer types. You have to speak more so I can infer types and know how to speak back in Python.
Yeah.
The developer jokes are starting. Wow.
I know. This is the show where we can bring up code.
Lee would kill me over this because you can technically make Python typed. It just doesn't enforce it at runtime, and you can do more stuff. But
yeah, awesome. Well, I just want to give kind of like a quick intro to the show. Nothing crazy for us to go over, but more so in terms of the structure and the sort of things that this show is going to be, going over. So one thing is like where folks have spoken about wanting a GM Farcaster, but a little bit more, or a show like that, but more developer focused. I've thought for a while about what's the best way to deliver that. And we've just been, when chatting with GM Farcaster and are starting off the show in terms of what the structure looks like. At first, it's really just going to be, every week can we come on and go over some of the top developer links and news. Maybe in the future that will turn into us showing code. Maybe that will turn into having developers on, doing interviews. We're starting with a much looser format and banking on the fact that just going over this content at first can be helpful and start a fun dialogue. But I think there are a lot of really cool directions that this can go in. And for the next couple of weeks, we're going to be trying out with different guest co-hosts. We're going to be bringing up a range of different content. And so today I'm here with Samuel Huber. And before we get into some of the links, maybe Sam, for some of the folks who are maybe new to the show, newer to Farcaster or to the developer land, can you tell everyone a little bit about yourself? And I'm actually happy to do the same afterwards.
Sure. Well, a little bit about myself, born and raised near Frankfurt, Germany. So maybe way too direct, meaning like, no, this is no dependency injection. This is actually just my upbringing. Got into Farcaster around like 1.5 years ago, basically just because, well, one of the founders, Dan, posted about this like Ethereum builder community. And I didn't want to see any more price discussion on Twitter because even the developers get into it. So there I was like, okay, I can go over here. And there was this concept called channels, which were like focused discussions on just literal topics that I was interested in. So that sucked me in. Then there was this cool thing called frames, which by now most people are familiar with, but it's basically just an extension to make every web page you share on social media have some buttons, maybe an input field, and some fun to make it a little more interactive. And that's really, really sucked me in. My background is in IT security. So I've worked in penetration testing before, did some cloud engineering. So I'm more on that side of the fence. Farcaster pulled me into front-end stuff, but I still usually hire front-end developers because you're better at that.
Nice. Awesome. And I'm happy to kind of give a quick bit of an intro myself. My name is Dylan Dillstack. I've been doing full stack work at Nanar for the past couple of months, building no-code frames, front-end tools, but a bunch of other products. I joined Farcaster a little over 2 years ago. I got invite from Matt from events.xyz, who I had known actually from Twitter. So shout out to Matt there. And just got really interested in decentralized social, ended up building a bunch of different early tools on Farcaster, was helping organize FarCon. I've been running a FarHack and thinking about Farcaster from the hacker or kind of like upcoming developer standpoint, and just generally trying to stay very involved in the developer community, building cool stuff. And I think, as you'll see today, there's a lot of really exciting stuff going on Farcaster. And before we go into the links, there's actually one more question, and Before we go to that, though, Adrienne, would you like to give a really quick intro? And is there anything that you would like to say potentially about the GM Farcaster Network? And thank you so much for having us.
Yeah, I'm super excited about this. So I'm Adrienne at Adrienne on Farcaster. I'm one of the co-hosts of GM Farcaster, which is a live stream Farcaster news show. We've been doing GM Farcaster. We have, I think, 174 episodes. We do it 3 times a week since September 2023. I joined Farcaster about 2 years ago because I thought blockchains were really cool. And I think a censorship-resistant social media world where there's not any one single owner of our identity and who we can communicate with is important for the world. So I've been spending my time here. I have a developer background, but I've not been like hands-on keyboard since like probably Sam when you were in maybe elementary school or something. Like early, not to call anyone out, but it's been like over 15 years or so since I've been like really hands-on. But I just love, one of the things I really loved about Farcaster was
that checks out with elementary school.
Okay. So one of the things that drew me to Farcaster was this idea that it's really a builder and dev focused network, that it wasn't going to be something that one small group was going to figure out what it looks like, but developers everywhere permissionlessly could come and build. So I've been hanging out on Farcaster. And while GM Farcaster is more of like a news and culture show, I've really wanted to dig more in and shine more light onto developers. So this is our one of our early GM Farcaster network shows where our vision is a 24-hour infinite content of all Farcaster media. So super excited to just sit alongside with you and let you devs have the spotlight.
So does like the network itself mean that at the next FarCon there's going to be just like one big screen of like just GM Farcaster like network, GM Farcaster network content instead of just sports in like the gyms and all of it?
I hope so.
Wow.
Be cool.
Okay, so Dylan,
Awesome.
If you do co-organize the next one as well, please have a gym and have that screen up there.
All right, I'm taking notes right now. Cool. So thank you so much for that, Adrienne. The main format we're going to be going through is going over links. Before we go over links, though, there is kind of like one thing I wanted to open this week up with, especially since it is the episode 1. Maybe folks listening back to this don't know much about Farcaster. Maybe they're not a developer on Farcaster, but Samuel, you are, to me, a really great advocate for, especially on Farcaster, trying to tell people the advantages of using these tools, why certain tools matter, why branding certain tools certain ways really matter. And so I wanted to ask you, and I'm happy to answer it back, like, why should people build on Farcaster? Like, this may seem, more obvious, I guess. Like now, like, what are the main advantages to
that
you?
Obvious. Well,
Sorry,
it's not
I didn't
that
mean,
obvious why. No. But like, if
Yeah.
you look at Farcaster from just pure outside, like, oh, you haven't heard about it, here is it, and you're just thrown in. A lot of the discourse you're seeing is on Farcaster about Farcaster. So that may throw some people off. Other discourse is around like crypto and building in crypto. So if you're not into any of those two things, then most likely this is like innovation style proof of concept land for you. I mean, like, okay, this could be one way of how the future works, and you just want to play around with it, or you want to have something cool to show off at a fair. So that's like how some people look at Farcaster, and like some conferences I speak at, or people I speak to look at it as that, where it's like, oh, this may be a new frontier. We want to learn about it. It's cool. If you actually look deeper and you just take out the actual content and you look at the tech architecture, then what you're looking at is at a system where, oh, it has been really fun over the last 10 years to build on the initial Facebook API, Farmville, Zynga being the most prominent example, and then being Twitter with all different kinds of web pages that just were fun to build on Twitter, like TweetDeck, for example, that then got acquired by Twitter. Reddit had the same. Reddit has a lot of bots and fun integrations into each individual subreddit where people in that community care enough to build a tool for it. Well, then over the last years, those companies figured out, oh, hey, we have to make money. We can't just pay for all of those servers that those people just use for free. So we will just charge for it. And then that API just isn't available to the everyday weekend warrior developer anymore. And on Farcaster, this is also technically the case if you want to go into fully running the full network on one computer. We're at the point where it is probably going to cost you at least 50 to $100 a month to run it, which for most people is fine if you're talking US, Europe financial background. If we're going global, then this is already starting to get expensive. And then you have to look into, okay, are there free providers that just let me use it? And yes, there are. And why are there those free providers? Because it's a company that just uses those $50, $100 to subsidize their marketing cost. What is behind that is an actual peer-to-peer network where any one company or any one developer can spin up their computer or their cluster and have access to all of those like APIs of Twitter, Reddit, Facebook that you didn't have. And that's just the social, right? If you're like, oh, I actually don't care about social media, I just care about building something fun for user wherever they are. If you look inside of the most prominent Farcaster app, which is like Webcast, then you have a bunch of tools where you can build as you would within Facebook, though you know that there is, if Webcast goes away, any other app then can pick up the slack and your tool actually still exists and still works. So that's to me why it's interesting.
Awesome. Yeah. Also, I guess the point I was making at first was less like I totally agree. Like for outsiders, there definitely isn't like the hook that's drawing them in to build, because if there was, then we would see even more people building.
Well,
I was kind of just alerting.
There actually is. It just isn't good enough. Like,
yeah, I guess, I mean, I was just referring to the fact that like we probably talk about it a lot, so we know a lot of the reasons why we find Farcaster interesting. But as you just said, like
yeah,
it needs to be kind of like marketed a little bit better to someone who's maybe more on the edge or just doesn't know about it.
it also needs to be better. One like I was looking at a bunch of developer communities over the weekend that are definitely not content with the community platform that on support platforms they have today. They're like, bro, Discord keeps banning users that keep posting valuable questions and answers into our chat. We just have no way of dealing with it because we don't run that platform. We don't own it. Well, on Farcaster, they can't be banned. So like maybe Webcast won't show their answers, but if that community just builds their own like forum style web user interface, then they control all of it, they can do all of it, and those users are still shown. And then they could work with somebody like Inena where you work to get some spam moderation in there, because generally we've seen that you do want that, because if everything is too open, you have floodgates. So you have to build dams, and that's why, like in countries, usually in civilization, you build your rivers yourself. You don't just fully let nature take over. But those communities have no other place to go to, because all other decentralized platforms are just Twitter or some other form, and they're not composable enough. Whereas Farcaster is. The problem that we have is, one, it's not easy enough for them to get started. As like a developer tooling, samples, ready to make repos, companies as platform as a service built on top of it. Two, if you just want to use Webcast for it, there is so many gotchas. So say that you're new and you want to post into the Nana channel because you have a question about Nana. Just walk me through how that would look like, and you will realize that, oh, you actually can't post into that like support channel, because if it's not public, you need to be a member. If it's public, you're good. Say it wasn't public, then the Webcast UI doesn't prompt you to go to the channel page, figure out how to join. So there's no clear path to join a community. So there's some of those rough edges that we still have to solve before we can fully recommend it, I feel like, and before the floodgates come.
Yeah, for sure. Like if I were to give my own pitch, if you're a developer, as to like why you should build on Farcaster, the number one like pitch I would give is that you have an open and composable social graph, especially if you think about mobile apps now. Like the newest iOS is making it very hard for you to share contacts. And that cold start of sharing a contact is normally like the main way that you would join any sort of app. And Farcaster fully kills that. Like all the data is open. You can see who people are friends with. Everyone has an Ethereum wallet, which, like, as we'll go in later, opens up some cool AI bot agent possibilities as well, where they can be all this stuff happening autonomously. You also have this credibly neutral town square, this platform that is being guaranteed by these networks that, albeit they're running on like AWS, but they're being run by a bunch of different people, over 1,000 of these hubs that guarantee the state of the
hubs are
network.
mostly on Hetzner, actually. They're not on AWS, they're on Hetzner.
Yeah. No, I mean, Hetzner has some good deals, so good to them, you know.
Yeah.
But like you have this global distributed system, and so I think there is a lot of, and you have the composability of all these Legos, like frames and mini apps and cast action, composer actions, like all of this stuff that gives you more surface area over what you're building. And on top of that, it's really great, especially for like a starting community. There have been many apps that build their first initial following on Farcaster and either grow that section or even kind of like pivot more off Farcaster. And like, while we'd obviously like people to grow with Farcaster, like that in and of itself is still really cool that someone can use that as their initial go to market, for lack of a better word. Now, I won't deny that like there are certain like blockers, like for example, if you are someone who can build a large following for an app, then why do you want to bring that following to a relatively small network where you have to then pay to onboard every user to that network? But that's also a completely different like problem. That's maybe not the set of people that Farcaster is targeting. And I think, not to speak for Dan at all, but if he were here, he would probably say something to the effect of, let's like solve the problems and get to the traction at the scale that we haven't gotten to yet within the Farcaster community. And if someone can build that breakout thing from the ground up, then we can think about supporting it. And you know, to their credit, the cost of certain things like certain, you know, the on-chain registry is going down a little bit. But there is just like so much value in building your initial community, having an opening and composable social graph, having these different Lego blocks that you can build with. And the other thing I'll note is that because we're going to have this system of read and write hubs, I personally think that reads are going to get even cheaper and easier. And so if you want to make even just like a read-only app and do something fun and experiment, that you would have to pay, you know, $10,000 a month for the Twitter API just to get started with, Farcaster is really cool. And then we could obviously sell you on the promise of the future and what it could all look like. But that's, to me, what I would say is kind of like the most immediate, tangible pitch with how things are right now.
Dylan, follow-up question, because you said read write hubs, and obviously I'm a little out of the loop. Are you implying, so today a hub is a hub, and you can, anyone, right, can download, access. By the way, we should mention there's no rewards for running a hub. Okay.
Yes, no tokens.
You're just being called cool by chat.
Yeah.
You can send us tokens, DYOR.
Samuel L. Uber.eth works across all Ethereum chains. Just putting it out there.
But when you download a hub today, you have full access to read and write. Are you saying that in the future are they splitting it up maybe so that there's a read only hub that you can then just kind of access data and then not write back to?
Yeah. So there's. Oh, sorry.
Don't take it. Don't take it. I can go on a tantrum just about the mechanism of how that write is going to work. So go ahead.
So at the high level, like they're splitting it into two different. Well, they're doing a lot of changes and they're creating like this entire new snap chain to like as a really fundamental change to the architecture of hubs. And I'm sure Sam could go into that even more because he read through the whole snap chain document, and that's something I need to go through a little bit more. But there'll essentially be two different types of hubs. So read hubs, which are going to be like 99.999% of all hubs, and then write hubs, which like I'm not trying to confirm anything. I think it's like Warpcast and Nanar running the first two write hubs. I might be mistaken, but like that's what I've seen at least.
They want to have 11. They want to have 11.
Oh, 11?
If you only have,
oh, okay.
Yeah. If you
right,
have
so I'm behind
two,
on that conversation.
Yeah. The problem there is if you only have Webcast and Nana, you're both under US jurisdiction. And so it's basically, if you want to look at it as from a decentralized standpoint, there's replication of two, which in any system, replication of two leads to a lot of fatal states. It's like, what if one fails? Who's going to be the one taking over and all of that? Like, typically replication is either one single failure or at least three, and then like 5, 7, and going beyond that, which Adrienne could probably get into the architecture of failure states.
Yeah, but basically there's going to be a small number of read and write hubs, and the idea is that like the majority of people are just going to be using reads, and then the writes will like have some sort of architecture to make sure it's not taking up extra space that all of the reads does, because the space of that data is just growing so much.
The way that it's supposed to work is that if you just want access to the data, you can just spin up software, read all of it. Sync. Snapchain is going to make syncing a lot easier because it will follow like a blockchain epoch style. Oh, here is new data, here, new data, new data, new data, new data, new data. So you instantly know which new data you have or you don't have. Right now, it's just, hey, here's a bunch of shit. So, and literally that's what it is. And you have to figure out and just do plumbing, which, as many of us are not plumbers, we most likely don't want to do. If you actually get an ordered log, since we're programmers and generally like more organized people, we like logs. So that's what Snapchain will enable. On the writing part, the current implementation struggles in that everyone has to get everything and coordinate over everything. So since there are already thousands of hubs, you have to actually transfer everything over those 1,000. Well, if you only have to communicate between a distinct set of writers, because you know that the other ones aren't going to get no messages, you have way less traffic, so you can be way faster. And that is what inspired kind of like that architecture. What that implies also is that, well, you can't write permissionlessly if you don't write to one of those write hubs. So then the question becomes, how do you make sure that you will always be able to write without being censored and still keep sufficiently decentralized, right? And that's the crux of what then follows is like the red tail of Snapchain to me. What the like syncing and everything will be great.
Yep. But there's going to be a lot of really cool changes, a lot of really interesting scaling that Farcaster is going to be able to do. And I think because they're creating this architecture now, it'll like not only solve a lot of the problems that are maybe making certain teams fight fires right now, but will just create leeway for a lot of like more interesting problems to be solved or just like even be possible down the line. So I think that's going to be cool. Awesome. Well, I think with that, since we're about like halfway through, we should get through. I don't have a crazy amount of links, but let's start to get through some of the links. So this was kind of just the intro. Thanks so much for being here. I think for now we're gonna keep doing this on Tuesdays, but if anything comes up with the time change, we'll let you know accordingly. Now this is definitely something that I wanted to start with. If you have been living under a rock for the past week, and that's okay, crypto moves pretty quick these days. Something very cool happened on Farcaster, and I'm excited about this as well because, and I don't know if Adrienne and Sam, you agree, but for a couple weeks, like I was not particularly enthusiastic about what I was seeing on my feed. And then some people were calling a Frame Friday Part 2 moment. I don't actually know if it's that high, but it's probably the closest thing I think we've seen since then. But Martin, who created the Higher token, a shout out Martin, created a bot. This bot is called Aethernet, and Aethernet is a Farcaster bot using Maynard to send out casts. It uses Claude, I believe, and it's responding to people. It seems like it has like some sort of loose context. Maybe it gets the whole parent thread, something like that. But the coolest part was the bot actually using other bots and even interacting with other bots to take action and ask questions. So here, as Linda from Bountycaster is showing, the Ethernet bot was in a conversation. Oh, that's not found. Let's find another one. But essentially, the bot was in the conversation, was
Dylan,
chatting.
just
Yep.
just so you know, a little bit of
Yeah.
context. We've had
Okay. Yeah.
trouble with the bot. The Ethernet is posting and casting so ridiculously frequently, like just message after message, that he is running out of storage and casts are getting pruned. So I don't know if that's why you can't find your cast, but it is likely it's getting pruned.
Interesting.
And this is after many people have graciously bought the bot more and more storage.
Yeah. Well, here's another example because the other cast isn't there. But here, Ethernet is responding and paying out the author in 100 higher for the milestone, and the bot has an Ethereum address. I think the bot has like a 100 grand worth of crypto or something. Woj was casting it out. Let's see. Yeah, Wallet, one of the most popular Farcaster AI agents, is now worth almost 100K, all in Ethan higher, made from a Zora mint in donations. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, I mean it's really cool. I think like some of the coolest parts to me, or two of the coolest parts to me, were one, bots interacting with other bots, and then also the bot X like crypto or decentralized social angle, because you have like a bot, doing something in public, like making use of this public infrastructure, but then also being able to act somewhat with a mind of its own and perform tasks. And you could imagine a world where, like, if this was an actual like real agentic system with some sort of parameters, it could go out and perform tasks on its own. Like, let's say you tell the bot, hey, every Tuesday, I want you to check my position on this token. And if the token is up, I want you to go and sell. And the bot could autonomously like actually go and do all of these sort of things on your behalf. And you could have a system that is where like the computer is actually really doing things for you behind the scenes to a level that we haven't really seen before. Like, you could see the applications of that beyond crypto, but you could also see really interesting crypto applications because of how the permissionless rails let something like this scale. So that was cool. Like, I'm also really curious. Like, I was thinking over the past weekend, for example, like, do I build something on that? Like, do I build a bot like that? And to be quite honest, idea didn't really pick my mind that was like, oh, this is something I would be using. But if it's okay with you guys, I have been workshopping something that I can show. Please don't find my link, but I'm just gonna show this. Why not?
Somebody is gonna just write a little curl script that is just gonna run up your vessel.
It's all right. I'll just switch Versal links after this. But I've been thinking, well, instead of the bot, being on Farcaster, what if I could just ask the bot questions like an LLM? So, for example, I could ask, what are some upcoming events that I'm going to? And it could actually return a frame of the events that I'm going to. Let's see if this works live. That's going to be annoying if it doesn't.
Wait, so this is then pulling from the events.xyz casts and showing you the frame that is living on Farcaster below?
Yes. Yeah. Let me run the let me run the local server for like 5 seconds to demo this, because I think something's happening. But you know what? This is a dev show, so we can do things like run a development server. So I'm glad that we can do this here. Let's see.
You should have hard-coded another port. 3000 is boring. Should have hard-coded 6969 or something fun like that. Just for the demo.
Yeah. All right. Let's see if this one will work. And if not, then I can just show the video where we'll give up. But I think it should be loading.
It looks better.
All right. Let's wait. Maybe something's in the way of the frame, but it should be showing frames here. Oh, wait, the frame's loading in. Hey, there we go. All right, it actually worked this time.
Do you have a signer connected? Can you like actually click on that stuff and just actually join from that?
That's the next step. I kind of just hacked this together last night, but the next step would be that you would actually have the signer and you can just request to join and like take the action right there. I also have, I don't know if this will work. We can try it as well. What can you tell me about a user on Farcaster? And it should be able to search over the cast and then, oh, okay. Well, there's an error there. That's fine. But essentially trying to see like what are some different things where I can either show an overview or let you take an action. I think this one with the frame in particular, like when I first was demoing this, instead of a frame, I just made my own little UI card. And then I was like, oh, a frame would be really cool here because, you know, not only would it look nice as an embed, but it would give you that option to like get a response and actually take an action. And with this idea, I'm trying to think, you know, instead of doing something publicly in a bot where I'm going back and forth with replies, can I just kind of like type in what I want to see or think about or do, and then take another quick action on it directly in the context? And maybe I'm not trying to stay on the app, but this could be cool. I mean, imagine another one is like for the hub episode 1, I click view live stream and then I see a mini app or the frame and I can just like watch the live stream right here or get redirected to it or
I
something
feel like
that.
one thing that's even more interesting is if, say, like more web pages had frames and all of that, then you could technically go and, because frames enable transactions, and search in your own like Perplexity, Google search engine style app, get products, for example, and buy them right away. It's like you don't even have to visit the web page buy, because they will just, you will have this little widget frame thing in there and you can just take that action. You can now sign up for that event. Technically, you could even now ask your AI to just go through the frame, get the calendar event, add it to your calendar if all of that integration is there. And that's just enabled through the application responding with Farcaster frame stuff, you having your Farcaster account connected so that the actual application knows, hey, it's actually Dylan. It's not just some bot trying to scrape it. And they don't need to know if it's your AI agent or not. So there's just like way more composability that you can do with it, I think.
Yeah, or I can type in a token and be like, you know, like how much is higher up over the past 24 hours and see a little chart and then click and buy it. I mean, maybe that's like
okay.
a more rudimentary.
You can also go the crypto route. Yes, I was trying to go the real world stuff.
Oh yeah. No, that's the part that's more interesting. I'm just like, I'm trying to think as well, like, what are the different like, because I've been thinking for a while about like composability between Farcaster apps. So right now, like while my long-term vision and excitement is more like also that web 2 stuff of like, hey, can I use this to book a flight, organize my tabs, like, you know, all the kind of productivity stuff. For now, I'm also thinking around the tangent of like, what are the types of actions that I'm taking in a Farcaster app? And maybe the action is just I want to go use the app, whatever. But like, what are the actions I'm taking and what's the path that I'm using to get there? And so this can be a way for me to like start the path. You know, you see the information, you ask questions about it, and then when you get the result, you one tap, you know, send your answer, load a mini app, have an experience, do whatever you need to do.
It could also be a greater entry point, because one entry point problem we have right now is everything is in a feed, meaning like, oh, those events will just go under. But if you can just search for your events and you just always AI search for all of it, then you have a way to permanently have these events. And then Matthew can be like, oh, wait, actually now more people see those events. I need to spec out the frame more. I need to build a better experience so that via the mini app, you can also just integrate those into your AI, and then it's just fully there. For trivia, for example, you could play trivia in your AI. You just find out, hey, when's the next trivia game, set a reminder, it will prompt you back in, and now you're playing trivia, right? Like all of that composability works. What we haven't figured out yet is how to really get the flywheel spinning fast enough so we can get to the fully fledged end goals that we're talking about here. And that's the disconnect we have between what we see on Farcaster right now and what we're mostly talking about, and what people outside, they just see the like what we have right now. It's like, okay, and then you have to show them and communicate to them in a way that speaks to them on how can we actually get there, how could they help get there, and what's interesting for them.
Yeah, totally. But yeah, I mean, I just did this over the last couple of days, but I definitely do need to like spec it out so I figure out kind of where my next steps are, and then at some point it would be good to get it out to a couple people, or maybe do something where like, you know, you log in with Hypersub or something like that. But yeah, glad I was kind of able to show this. I think that could also be something cool about the show, is like being able to like go over code, run projects locally, all that kind of stuff.
So you're gonna have a weekly dev showcase where you're gonna just show your latest state. So you're just
honestly
challenging
maybe
yourself. You're challenging
I mean, I
yourself.
probably should. Like,
that means also you're challenging yourself to have something to show each week.
It's a good sense of accountability, honestly, because like one issue I get in with my personal projects is I can like build out an MVP or a proof of concept like that, and I can have like a bunch of different ideas of directions I could take it in, but then not properly set a scope and be like, okay, like I'm going to build out these 3 or 4 and I'm going to call that a version 1 and get it out by Friday and show it to these people. And, you know, when you do that, then you get iterations of feedback, and you can actually like have public, you know, proof of progress and all that. And so I'm trying to get a little bit better at those iteration cycles, because it's good to know that there's compounding progress, and it also just feels better to have something out there that people can test. So that could be cool. Should we I think you're on mute, Sam.
There's some fun stuff I want to show, but I'm not sure I'm allowed to show it. But there's some fun supercast stuff that I'm aware of that's coming.
I do. Oh, yeah. Let me show. Let me show his account. Yeah, I know what you're talking about.
You don't, but
you have code. Do you have the code, Sam?
No. I have.
You have a private group chat.
No. I have some localhost stuff that I can't show, but there's some upgrades going on in Supercast that are going to be really, really fun, and this is one of them, right? This is like pets.
This is one of them.
You need to upgrade Supercast to make pets really, really fun. So there's a bunch of stuff Voice doing that is going to be really fun for those pets, and also bring Supercast improvements. It's like people saying, oh, Fortnite ruined gaming, but Fortnite actually made Unreal Engine really, really good. So that Unreal Engine now is becoming the default game engine. It's like pets may not be your thing, but it's going to make Supercast really, really good.
Oh, okay. I think I have a hint as to why.
Without revealing too much.
I think I have a hint as to why you say that. I'm not going to reveal it. I can maybe say it to you offline, but
I'm not sure what I'm allowed to say. I haven't signed documents, so I'm Wild West stuff.
We don't need permission around here.
Yeah.
But I'll respect that.
Yeah, let's get to Buoy. Just wanted to tease some stuff.
Yeah, I think this was a cool one, like these particular cast digests. I think like it's also been cool. I think like Buoy did something else where like you can share like on Buoy, you make like a list of casts or something like that. And then in a frame, you can share like the mini app with those casts. I think it's cool that like that's something that people
essentially your search. Like you make a search query, you can share that as a frame, and then if the person clicks like, oh, I want to read it, it opens the mini app, and you just see the literal view in their app of all the casts that are in the search that are coming up live.
Yeah, I think it's like a good sign of the type of like iteration and like steps to PMF you can take on Farcaster, that people are literally willing to use a mini app with search in an app that has search in it, because the search adds something to their UX. You know what I mean? I don't mean that on a bad thing to anyone's side. I mean, I think it's like a cool thing. Like in most social media environments, I think you would not see that sort of behavior happen. But it's cool that Farcaster gives developers that space, because like it seems to me like people are using these features and this in particular, like getting a digest. And I think it's also just cool use of all the different Legos framed to open a mini app, sending direct casts. It's cool to see when like Farcaster native tools really try and make use of all the different Legos in ways that they think make sense.
Yeah, also Buoy is like a great team that has built a mobile app around it. They've built a web app around it. They're now building those into Webcast. And the craziest thing that they have done to me is they've really built a great backend that you experience in the low latency that they have. Like they have the lowest latency notifications that I've seen around Farcaster, which speaks to how good they're doing on the infrastructure side, which sadly you don't see because it's not open source, and it's like their secret to why they're so good. But it's great to see that people have put that much time into developing systems around Farcaster.
Yeah, and I remember at Dev Day that we're saying that they were able to run their infra like very lean, very cheap. So kudos to them. It does seem like the back end is their sauce.
Yeah. That's also why you can't get too much out of them, which I respect, but it's still I want to know everything.
I get it. No, I get it. Yeah. Cool. Awesome. This one I liked as well. So for those who might be newer or to the spec, you can now have mini app transactions inside of Warpcast. Let's see. Maybe Horsefax has the spec. Here we go. Nice. That's a good use of Warpcast search.
Well, if Warpcast search works, yeah. Otherwise, we use Buoy.
Yeah, Buoy. But basically, I've been thinking, something like this was going to happen for a while, and I think it's going to continue. That you're going to have this like client mini app communication. At first the communication is you're requesting from the mini app to get like the link, right? You're making a post request to get the link, and so you can have this authenticated context so that like when you pop up the FC trivia, it knows who you are, it knows you're logged in, who to attribute points to. But because Warpcast has all this really interesting infrastructure, you can also call back into Warpcast. So at first with composer actions, right, it was like window.parent.post message, and the message you were posting was a cast. And the cast composer was being populated with text, embeds, all that sort of stuff. But now you can use the authenticated wallet and you can post a message. So here, I believe you just need to pass in, these couple parameters at first, and then the params in here for the action are really just, the method, the chain ID, the ABI. What's actually,
if you're familiar with frames and transaction frames, it's literally a JSON that you have to return as transaction data or signature data, and then just specify the action that people should take, and then they will either send the transaction or sign it or whatever, and you just get it back.
Yeah, and I think even the Nanar like frame action routes for URLs work for getting back this sort of data as well, if I'm not mistaken. But it is rather simple, but I think it opens up some cool stuff. And so an example of that here is, Matthew Fox, legendary mini app builder on Farcaster. He integrated it so that when you get your NFT, your commemorative NFT, this pop-up comes up in the dialogue. If the video will play or not, you would choose your wallet, etc. This is all still in the mini app. But then when you hit mint, this modal kind of like precedes or supersedes, I guess, your mini app, like comes up to the foreground.
Yeah, this is now Warpcast, right? Like this is the actual client. This is not the mini app itself anymore. This is what the client sees. So if you see the mint in progress of it, this is in the mini app. Like this is a modal that Matthew has done in the mini app to have you do all of it. What comes after is just what Warpcast. Like this is all Warpcast and Warpcasting. Matthew has nothing to do with any of that. He just gets back the transaction hash and then is handling it how he wants to handle it, right? Then it's like your wallet, your whatever. So you as the mini app dev don't have to worry about connecting a wallet, whatever. The client will do that for you, and then the client has the freedom to just have some safety guards around it or do whatever, sponsor it for you. Don't have to go out to another wallet, choose whatever, right?
Yeah, I also really like that in the UI here. And I mean, I guess it makes sense that they wouldn't do this. That it doesn't like close the mini app, it's not like exiting out of the mini app. I see some screen and then I come back into it. I mean, I guess I have to leave for a second when I go confirm in my wallet, but like the fact that this pops up and the mini app is still in the background feels like you're still taking that action, kind of like an Apple Pay. You make the transaction and then you're done and you're back in the context. And so I think that's going to open up a lot of stuff. Like, for example, let's say that Farcaster were to build in a smart wallet and you can do a lot of the same stuff and just kind of like take any smart wallet action, and then Farcaster or it can give out session keys the same way that like the Coinbase developer platform does. So I think there is a lot of really interesting stuff that can be done there, and I'm sure that Matthew is going to keep pushing the limits for what you can do in the space.
Also, like not to confuse Farcaster and Warpcast there. That would all work within Warpcast. So meaning like if you were to have like a smart wallet or whatever, that would be Warpcast platform. If they were to be a general Farcaster standard on how you build those, there's like a standard body, and then all clients could potentially integrate with it. But it's like a client level feature to transactions that's fully within Warpcast. You will not see a general like, oh, here's a Farcaster wallet, anyone can just use it out of security reasons. You would then have like a client be added to the wallet, and then every client manages it, similar to how we manage posting permissions right now with signers, most likely. So just making sure that we don't confuse the protocol with the client there.
Yeah. Cool. Nice. So the I know we have like a couple minutes left, but the main it's actually good because we got through most. So we got through the AI pets. Here I can quickly go over the fact that like I think this show in particular is really cool, like the Farcaster 101. I also think that there's a cool developer angle where a lot of the content here is interesting from a developer perspective, in that the more you like can know about Farcaster and the more entry points there are, the more likely people are to get started, to build, etc. And so definitely check out Farcaster 101. Adrienne, is there any other information about where folks can find the show or what they should know about it?
The show's streamed and recorded on our YouTube channel, which is at GM Farcaster. I think that's really interesting what you said, Dill, because we created the show, which is a curriculum about onboarding Farcaster. So it's like Farcaster from like high level basics in terms of protocol, difference between protocol and client and blockchain basics. But part of the curriculum is just about Farcaster culture. How do you create content? How do you engage? It's really like a guide for brands, primarily for how do you approach Farcaster. I think it's interesting that you're recommending this to developers, and I almost want to flip that also, is like, I think people who are not developers should watch this podcast too, because I've also found it's like in the ecosystem, like that's the more you can kind of just learn about the space, because we're all acting in a space that is not formed already. It's like, it's very emergent. So kind of acting in the space changes the space. And the more we can, I think, participate and educate and learn, and not stay in your lane, like don't identify as I'm a brand or I'm a developer or I'm a content creator, and learn about everybody who's building, I think the better Farcaster can become. So nice call out.
Thank you. No, agreed. Definitely agreed there. Like just having a holistic approach and trying to absorb as much knowledge as possible in different areas. And yeah.
And to add on to that, to go through the other tweet that you have or cast that you have open, is if you're familiar enough with it, or you just want to know, okay, what is actually coming down the pipeline, then you're joining the developer calls or reading Dylan's notes that he puts out every week. Steve from Pinata also has notes. There's like 2 notes that you can go through. The YouTube Farcaster channel also has the actual recordings of the archive, so you can go and read like at least 3-4 opinions on each single dev call. Maybe too much information to consume, but it is places where you can go and you can get just the latest, greatest, and what's coming next. The dev call to me is always like 1, where are we? 2nd, which problems exist? 3rd, okay, where are we going? And the where are we going is usually like, oh, if you've been on the dev calls and then the announcements roll in, it's like, okay, it's live now. But like to every user, it's like, oh, this is confusing, this whatever. But it's like being on the dev call, it's like, okay, you heard it 3 times. It's like, yeah, that's coming.
Yeah.
Because it's like,
Yeah.
the dev call is a good place to be.
Yeah. Cool. So I know we may only have a couple minutes left though, but I did want to just kind of prop up some notes from the dev call. I'm just going to go to the blog posts. So yeah, for the past couple months, like this is where the kind of like main art, like blog, formatted notes I've been putting have been going. What I really like about the past couple dev calls, especially like after dev day, is that it's been structured in terms of what are the top priorities on like Merkle's plate, and then what are they doing from there. So it's always been growth, direct casts, reducing sign-up costs, hubs, the location FIPs, and then sign in with Farcaster. So I can kind of just like I'll run through each section quickly, and then if you have a couple notes, just like let me know about. I can try and make each section rather quicker. So for channels, it seems like they're just still like collecting user feedback. They would like to pursue onboarding. I know there were a lot of particular talks about like how do you onboard people to a particular channel. With reducing sign-up costs, there were also talks about, well, can you subsidize certain onboarding costs? I haven't been a part of some of those conversations, so I don't really know what the current state is. Seems like as well for free feeds, there are a couple improvements behind the scenes to just trying to make sure that the feed generates more relevant content for you. For transactions, there's now the mini app transaction spec, which we just saw, and they're thinking through what are easier ways to like unify frames, mini apps, actions. There have been all these different keywords, all these entry points, but it does seem like, you know, you have like a mini app as a place where you do a little bit more, and then frame as that like initial entry point, or maybe for some smaller actions. Sam, I know you've been.
To me, if you're sending out a web form or like a tele, a type form, a Google form, that's where, like, for the first 1 or 2 questions, that's typically a frame. Or you just need somebody to press 2 buttons, that's a frame, and then you send them either to your actual webpage because you want them in your full platform, or you just take a mini app because you want them to stay in Webcast, make it super easy, and you have then 3 to maybe like 5, 10 other steps. If it's like a utility, if it's entertainment, it's like, well, just have 1 button, open this mini app and entertain the person. So you don't need to actually do it in frame. So that's how I look at it. I've also written about this. I think it came out like middle of last week, where I'm going through like all of those and giving examples how to use it. So it's a guide that I'll be writing out more. But that's generally how I look at it. Frame is like, well, some like light form, 2 or 3 step work, maybe instantly a transaction to pay for something, and then mini app is a more full-fledged experience that you can use to just let somebody stay in Webcast, bring you into a mobile app, so you may also don't need to build an actual mobile app for somebody. And then you can use direct messages, direct casts, pinging somebody in feed and all of that to keep in touch and engage with the user.
Yep. Yeah, for sure. I think especially again, like for that initial, you know, you're bootstrapping that initial market. I think like one of the things that's been in the back of my mind is like, well, if we get to the point where all of these apps are growing so much, is everything, I mean, that's kind of why I was exploring that AI thing, is like, is every single thing going to continue happening in the feed? But I think at least right now, there's still like adds a lot of value, and there's still a lot of room to keep exploring there. But going through the rest of these quickly, because there's not a ton, honestly. Direct cast, they shipped auto expiring messages. I think the default is about a year or so, and you have a couple different options there. And there's a couple more.
Default is a year.
Yep. Yeah, and there's a couple other like developer APIs that I know Gabriel is working on. I'll just throw up
it
his.
Is fully like, you can actually now read direct messages. You can now manage group chats. You can also have more group chat interactivity in there with the new APIs. So that is great. If you're
nice.
building that, follow Gabriel. Also make sure to go into the dev calls, because like a lot of those conversations are going to happen there over the next few months.
Yeah, totally. For the rest here, protocol signups are at $2. Warpcast is at $3. I think mainly because of IAP. Hubs, there was a mem leak bug that was fixed, and there's just been a lot of work, it seems, on SnapChain, which maybe even next time we could just go even deeper on SnapChain.
You can basically think about SnapChain as the next version, while hubs are in maintenance mode. Like there's some stuff happening, like locations have just been added to hubs, but the main idea is that like there's not much changing on hubs at all. SnapChain is going to be all the attention and all the rage and where everything is going to.
Nice. And then user location on profiles, that is shipped to the protocol. Warpcast has also added Twitter verification. I think they're going to add GitHub. I think that's on the protocol as well. They're adding a second type for GitHub. And then sign with Farcaster, it seems like they kind of just didn't get to, but they're seeing if like smart wallets and passkeys would potentially help. And that's kind of the mean that we spoke about. But if you do want to join, the developer call happens every other Thursday. So it just happened last week. It won't happen this Thursday. It should happen the Thursday after. If you do want to join, you should just go to Varun's account, and he shared an events.xyz link. I don't have it handy, but it's always there. And I believe that brings us to the end. So thank you again so much for joining the first episode of The Hub. Thanks so much, Sam, for joining today. Really appreciate you being here. Thank you, Adrienne and Nounish Proth, for kind of giving us this space to start something on the GM Farcaster Network, and we're just super excited about this.
Yep, I can only echo that sentiment. And one like call to action I have is, if you build anything or even have a question about anything, please publicly post about it. Please just post about it anywhere. Tag anyone you know, because the worst thing that can happen is for that question to go under and you not being helped, and then you being frustrated. Like, everyone in this ecosystem really wants to lift you up and help you. Like, I'm asking questions constantly in every single chat, whether or not it's stupid or not. I just ask the question because I know people are generally helpful and really authentic here, and I would love for everyone else to also experience that. So please just post, even if you think it's stupid, just post it. Thank you.
Yeah, and reach out to any of us as well. I'm sure that any of us on this call will be happy to at least see, you know, your DM and help if you're newer on Farcaster or you're just joining the network or something like that. But
Great.
Awesome. Well, yes,
Great
thank
first
you again.
episode.
Oh, did you stop? Is it still?
No, we're still going. I'm just saying, great first episode. I loved it. All right.
Awesome.
Deb, keep building, everyone.
Woo. All right, keep building.